Okay, I did not want to have to make this video, but I'm going to have to make this video. All day today on the news channels, primarily the 24-hour news channels, they covered the protest. I guess it's a group called Unite the Right. People call them by different names: the alt-right, the neo-Nazis, white supremacists. But there was one common name that everyone seemed to call them across the board, every station, and that was that they called them racist. I've somewhat lost track of what that term means anymore, but it prompted me to ask a very important question. And try to bear with me, and actually anybody who wants to answer the question, I appreciate the comments and answering the question. What makes a person a bad person? How bad does a person have to be an all bad person? As I was watching the coverage, one of the things that I kept hearing people refer to was the comment that was made last year by President Trump. He said, there are good people on both sides. And everyone across the board, right, left, big, small, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, everyone was particularly outraged by this comment. And I guess the basic sentiment was, how dare he say that a white supremacist in any way, shape, or form could be a good person. Now, the way that I remember it, I don't know that everyone there was even a white supremacist or neo-Nazi or even part of the Unite the Right. It just had to do with saving some historical statute, if I remember correctly. If someone remembers otherwise, correct me. But it did make me ask the question, what makes a person a bad person? Like, what makes a person so bad that comment is an irredeemable comment? There were people who wanted to quit. There were people who did quit. There were people who seemed to never think that it was okay to associate with President Trump, again, based on those comments. I know people that I think are not good people. I'll be honest. I think we all do know someone. So the belief that white people are better just as a whole group, as an entire race, than other races of people, that's a somewhat a flawed way of thinking. Maybe you could call it ignorant at best. But what if that person happens to think that, doesn't want anything bad to happen to anybody else? They just happen to think that that's the way it is, and for some reason they think that's the way God made it. Does that make a person a bad person? What if that person is a good husband and father? What if he works really hard, or she works really hard, takes good care of their family, they're faithful? Are they a bad person? Are they a worse person than someone who doesn't take care of their children? In my mind, that's one of the most offensive things a person can do, because children are innocent, and they're your responsibility. And so, you know, is this person worse than someone who is a criminal that doesn't respect the rights or property of others? It seems as if there are some people who think that a gang member, MS-13, is more sympathetic than someone who just happens to have a belief system that's a flawed belief system. And I'll address the flawed nature of that belief system in a minute, because I think that there's a lot of people who are minorities who actually share that flawed belief system, and they don't even realize it. But I digress, as my dad always said. So what makes a person a bad person? How do we know that some of them were not good people that just happen to have a flawed belief system that's based on ignorance, lack of exposure, or just an arrogant asshole? We all know arrogant assholes, and some of us are arrogant assholes. Come on, don't tell me that no one there listening has a friend or a family member that you think you're better than. You're better than that person for some reason or another, maybe not based on race. Maybe you have an entire family who has a set of in-laws and you think your family is better than they are. I know someone does. So if you are willing to share that, if you work with a group of people and you somehow think that you're better than them, thinking you're better than someone, you know, maybe you had higher SAT test scores, maybe you did better in school. Is thinking that you're better than someone, you know, that people who are better in math, or who are smart in math are better than people who are smart in English? There's a lot of different theories upon which people base what makes someone better. Some within our control, some are not within our control. There are studies. We know that attractive women get things that maybe a less attractive woman doesn't get. We don't like to talk about it, but everybody knows it's true. We know that men who are taller get things that men who are not as tall don't get. Don't like to talk about it. We know it's true. So I just really want to have people maybe give me your feedback on what makes that comment so offensive in the big picture that it's irredeemable. I heard people saying things like he should address the nation. You know, he'd already denounced bigotry over and over, denounced people who were open bigots over and over. But I do think that some people, they've decided nothing will ever be enough. So I understand how sometimes the president says, okay, enough already. Nothing I do, nothing I ever say is going to be enough. And we've all been there. Who's ever had someone that you maybe broke up with, that got back together, broke up with, and they kept saying they were sorry, and you were like, okay, you know what, nothing you ever say, it's just not going to matter. So sometimes people get to that point where you know that nothing that you say is really going to matter, that people are never going to be happy, they're never going to be pleased, they're only going to hear those things that confirm what they already believe, and anything else you say, they probably are going to disregard. So what makes a person a bad person? What makes a person a good person? The people that I respect the most, men and women who are good parents. You know, if you're not together with your child's parent, can you put aside your differences to try to co-parent in peace? Are you respectful to, you know, your friends, your family? Do you have friends and family? Do they respect you? You know, do you work hard? Do you make an effort? Do you take responsibility? Those are the things that I think make a person a good person. And I don't hold it against them necessarily just because they happen to believe something that I don't believe, especially if it doesn't translate into actually trying to harm other people. This neo-Nazi, Unite the Right, white supremacist group, whatever they're called, they are so irrelevant. And I think as a whole, people forget that those people are so irrelevant, they weren't able to stop us from having a two-term black president. Two-term, not one term, but two-term. So they're very irrelevant. If you can't stop, and I laugh because I think there was more people trying to stop President Trump from becoming president than there was people trying to stop Barack Obama. But if you can't stop that, you can't stop a black man from becoming the most powerful person in the world, you're really very irrelevant as a group. I think the only thing that made them relevant was the counter-protesters, the ones that were there. They called themselves the Shut It Down. It's already shut down. Don't think it needs to be shut down. That's just my opinion based on what I saw and the numbers that were reported. My understanding is that there was less than 50 people there that were part of the Unite the Right supremacist group. So they were irrelevant and were only made relevant and only allowed these people to be put in the news because they showed up to shut it down. It's already shut down. People, you can go home. And some of their behavior was not very flattering. But that's a separate issue because, again, most of the people that were there that were counter-protesters were peaceful and good people. And the ones that were causing trouble, spitting at cops, I think that there was a report that someone said, I just peed on your wife to a police officer, one of the counter-protesters. What kind of thing is that to say? I'm not going to say that person was a bad person for saying something like that, but that's an awful, foul thing to say. So during the elections, there was a lot of tension, a lot of heat. I think there was a lot of conflict, and one of the things that happened to me is someone called me a white supremacist because I commented that maybe a person can be more than just a white supremacist. Maybe they just feel like their job opportunities are not as good as they should be or that they used to be, and maybe they're supporting the president for that reason. It doesn't have to be, you know, people are not, I think that we've all decided that people are not one-dimensional. They're not just one thing. That's why we put people in prison and then we let them out. That's why we put people on probation. That's why people have second chances. No one is one-dimensional. I think all of us have the capacity for some amount of good and bad. And that happens to be just, you know, another flawed thought process that may or may not be able to be debunked, and apparently has mostly been debunked because we had Barack Obama. And we've got a lot of other things too. I think, you know, one day I'll make a video about the accomplishments just in general that we overlook, because I think that the greatest form of white supremacy comes from those minority people who think that they cannot accomplish anything, including equality, unless they're allowed to by white people. Talk about supreme. You're basically saying then that God made this group supreme and I can't do anything. I can't accomplish economic equality or social equality unless they sacrifice something to give it to me. Talk about bigotry. Talk about white supremacy. So I look forward to your comments. I look forward to your feedback. I even look forward to your name calling as long as it's mixed in with some feedback and comments. So share, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Hopefully don't shut it down. Let me know what you think. What makes a person a good person? What makes a person a bad person? And how good or how bad do you have to be to fall in one category or the other? I look forward to your comments. Bye.